Don't let the humans get you." With those ominous words, Varys's mother tucked him into bed and began her chilling tale about humanity, the most terrifying species in the galaxy. It all started when Captain Adam Roberts led his advanced human starship into uncharted space, determined to expand the reach of his aggressive species. No one yet knew how that fateful mission would bring death and destruction to a peaceful alien world, and forever mark humans as dangerous warmongers in the eyes of galactic civilization. Adam's ship detected an unknown signal from an unexplored planet. They landed to investigate, clad in imposing armored spacesuits and wielding devastating high-tech weapons. On the surface, the humans encountered a serene Brunali settlement, filled with gentle villagers going about their lives. The startled Brunali tried desperately to communicate that they meant no harm. But it was no use. A single misunderstanding, a momentary fear, and suddenly human guns were firing. Brunali blood was spilling, and the galaxy would never be the same. In his zeal to dominate the aliens, the human commander Zane defied orders and led a horrific assault on the helpless Brunali village. Homes burned, families were torn apart, and an entire community was left in ruins, all because of the humans' relentless aggression and hunger for conquest. In the end, the humans left the ravaged planet behind, but the damage could not be undone. Elder Varys, the father listening to the tragic tale, had witnessed the carnage firsthand, and he knew that his people would spread the word of the terrible new threat that had exploded onto the galactic stage. Beware the humans, beware their cruelty, beware their power. As his mother finished her story, young Varys shivered beneath his blanket, hoping against hope that he would never meet a human face to face. For he knew that if the violent, heavily armed humans ever came to his home, only tragedy would follow. His planet, his people, his family. None would be safe from the brutal species whose very name was now synonymous with death and destruction. The humans had announced their presence to the galaxy at large, and the galaxy would never forget the horrors they had unleashed. It had all started with one fateful mission into the unknown, and now, no one could say where the path of human aggression would end, only that blood and tears were sure to follow. Months slid by, but the shadow of the human threat never left young Varys's mind. He watched his grandfather closely, noticing the deep lines of worry etched into the elder's face. One fateful day, as Varys played near the central fire pit, he overheard urgent whispers. Brunali scouts burst into the village, their voices trembling with fear. "The humans have returned!" Varys crept closer, his heart pounding. He saw his grandfather's face turn ashen as the scouts relayed their report. A human ship, bearing the same markings as the one from the disastrous first contact, had landed on the outskirts of Brunali territory. Elder Varys called an emergency meeting in the village square. As the Brunali gathered, a sense of dread hung thick in the air. Varys stood close to his mother, feeling her tremble. The elder raised his hands, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. "The humans have requested a meeting with our leaders. They claim they come in peace." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Varys's mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears. "Father, you can't go. It's too dangerous." But Elder Varys shook his head. "I must protect our people. If there is even a chance to prevent more bloodshed, I have to take it." He turned to the assembled villagers. "I will select a group of our bravest diplomats to accompany me. We will hear what the humans have to say." As preparations were made, Varys watched his grandfather don his ceremonial robes, his weathered hands trembling slightly. The weight of his people's fate rested heavily on the elder's shoulders. The journey to the human encampment was tense and silent. As the Brunali delegation approached, they saw the sleek lines of the human ship, a stark contrast to their simple dwellings. To their surprise, Captain Adam Roberts himself stepped forward to greet them. Varys's grandfather stood tall, his gaze wary. Adam's voice was filled with contrition. "Elder Varys, I come to express my deepest apologies for the actions of my crew. Commander Zane, the one responsible for the attack, has been stripped of his rank and confined to the ship. His actions do not represent our true intentions. The captain gestured to the encampment behind him. We seek to make amends, to establish a relationship of friendship and trade between our peoples. As a token of our goodwill, we offer to share our advanced technology with your village. Elder Varys listened, his brow furrowed. The other Brunali diplomats exchanged glances, their eyes lighting up at the mention of human technology. Visions of superior tools and weapons danced in their minds, the promise of an advantage over rival clans. A heated debate erupted among the Brunali. Some argued for accepting the humans' offer, seeing it as a path to strength and security. Others, like Elder Varys, remained distrustful, suspecting ulterior motives. Unbeknownst to those at the meeting, a sinister plot was unfolding aboard the human ship. Commander Zane, seething with resentment, gathered a group of like-minded soldiers. Captain Roberts's approach is weak, he spat. The only way to ensure our dominance is through force. Zane outlined his plan, convincing his followers to stage an attack on the Brunali village while its leaders were distracted by the negotiations. We'll frame it as a preemptive strike, neutralizing a potential threat. As the secret meeting dispersed, Zane's loyal soldiers prepared their weapons, their hearts filled with misguided purpose. Back at the negotiation site, Elder Varys's patience had reached its limit. He turned to Adam, his voice sharp. Why have you really come to our world, Captain? The truth this time. Under the Elder's piercing gaze, Adam's shoulders sagged. Our planet, Earth, it's facing an energy crisis. We need access to the rare minerals beneath your lands. But I swear, we seek a peaceful solution, one that benefits both our peoples. Just as Elder Varys opened his mouth to respond, a shout rang out. Smoke billowed on the horizon, rising from the direction of the Brunali village. The diplomats sprang to their feet, realization and rage dawning on their faces. Treachery! One cried out. The humans have betrayed us! In a blur of motion, the Brunali surrounded the human delegation, their primitive weapons drawn. Adam raised his hands, his eyes wide with shock and confusion. Elder Varys's voice cut through the chaos. What have you done, Captain? Your words of peace, nothing more than a distraction. As accusations flew and tensions reached a breaking point, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The Brunali village burned in the distance, the acrid smoke a testament to the humans' capacity for destruction. Young Varys, his eyes wide with fear, clung to his mother's hand. The bedtime story had taken a terrifying turn, leaving him desperate to know what would become of his grandfather, his people, and the fearsome humans who had once again brought chaos to their world. The peaceful negotiations had dissolved into chaos in a matter of moments. Elder Varys and his diplomats now stood with weapons trained on Captain Adam Roberts and his team, their faces etched with anger and betrayal. Call off the attack now, Elder Varys demanded, his voice harsh with urgency. Adam's eyes widened in genuine shock. What attack? I swear I gave no such order. But the smoke rising from the Brunali village told a different story. Elder Varys's grip tightened on his weapon. Do not lie to us, human. Your actions speak loudly enough. Adam's mind raced. He knew Zane must be behind this, but how could he convince the Brunali of his innocence? Elder Varys, please. This is Commander Zane's doing. He's gone rogue, defied my direct orders. Let me contact my ship. We can put a stop to this together. The Brunali leader's eyes narrowed, skepticism clear in every line of his face. And why should we trust you now? Meanwhile, in the village, young Varys huddled close to his mother as they crouched in a shadowy corner of their home. Outside, the sounds of struggle and shouted orders filled the air. Through a crack in the wall, Varys watched as human soldiers in gleaming armor herded his people into groups. A booming voice cut through the din. Commander Zane stood atop an overturned cart, his face flushed with the thrill of conquest. People of this world, hear me. This planet is now under human control. We will establish a permanent outpost here to extract the valuable resources beneath your soil. Cooperate, and you may yet have a place in the new order. Varys saw his neighbors rounded up, pushed toward the edges of the village where the rich mineral deposits lay. The boy's heart pounded as he recognized friends and extended family members in the group of new laborers. On the human ship, Sergeant Logan Hall stood at attention before Commander Zane, his fists tight. "Sir, with all due respect, this is not what we came here for. Our mission was one of peaceful exploration, not conquest and subjugation." Zane's face twisted with rage. "You dare question my authority, Sergeant? Our mission is whatever I say it is. The weak-willed fools back on Earth don't understand what it takes to secure humanity's future among the stars." "This is wrong, sir," Logan insisted, his voice steady despite the fury in Zane's eyes. "These people are sentient beings, not slaves to be exploited." "Guards," Zane bellowed, "take this traitor to the brig. He can rot there until he remembers his place." As Logan was dragged away, Captain Adam Roberts made a desperate appeal to Elder Varys. "Listen to me. Zane will never back down on his own. But if you help me get back to my ship, I can regain control and put an end to this madness." Elder Varys' eyes darted between Adam and the smoke still rising from his village. "And why should I trust you?" "Because right now I'm your only hope," Adam said softly. "Please, let me prove that not all humans are like Zane." After a tense moment, Elder Varys nodded. "Very well, but you and your team will surrender your weapons. One wrong move and my people will not hesitate to defend themselves." With that uneasy alliance formed, Adam, Elder Varys, and a small group from both sides began their covert approach to the human ship. As they crept through the underbrush, the sounds of conflict grew louder. In the village, young Varys watched in horror as an exhausted worker collapsed in the makeshift mining pit. One of Zane's soldiers raised his weapon. "No use to us now," the soldier muttered and fired. Varys buried his face in his mother's embrace, unable to watch as more of his people suffered the same fate. But even as tears streamed down his face, he heard whispers of resistance growing among both humans and Brunali. Aboard the ship, Adam and Elder Varys moved swiftly through the corridors, guided by Adam's knowledge of the layout. They reached the brig and found Sergeant Logan in a cell. "Captain!" Logan exclaimed as the cell door slid open. "Thank God you're here! Zane's lost his mind. We have to stop him." Adam nodded grimly. "That's the plan, Sergeant. Are you with us?" "All the way, sir," Logan replied without hesitation. As they made their way to the bridge, alarms began to blare. Zane's voice crackled over the intercom. "Intruder alert! All loyal personnel to battle stations!" The ship erupted into chaos as Zane's loyalists clashed with those who rallied to Adam's side. Energy weapons flashed in the corridors and the acrid smell of burned circuitry filled the air. Back in the village, young Varys huddled closer to his mother as distant explosions rocked the ground. "What's happening?" he whispered, his voice trembling. His mother stroked his hair, her own fear evident in her eyes. "I don't know, my love. We can only hope that this doesn't become a war that consumes us all." She paused, sensing Varys' need for comfort even in this moment of uncertainty. "But for now we must rest. Tomorrow we'll see what the new day brings." As Varys closed his eyes, the sounds of battle continued to echo in the distance, leaving the fate of both humans and Brunali hanging in the balance. The corridors of the human ship erupted in chaos. Blaster fire ricocheted off metal walls as Adam and Logan's rebel faction clashed with Zane's loyalists. Bodies fell on both sides, the acrid smell of burnt flesh and ozone filling the air. Adam's voice crackled over the comm. "Logan, we need that engine room." "On it, Captain," Logan shouted back, ducking as a bolt sizzled past his ear. He gestured to his team, and they surged forward, taking cover behind bulkheads. On the bridge, Adam wrestled control from Zane's men. Fingers flew across consoles, locking out systems and sealing off sections of the ship. "It's over, Zane," he called out. "Surrender now." But Zane wasn't finished. He grabbed Elder Varys, pressing a pistol to the Brunali leader's head. "Order your people to stand down," he snarled, "or I'll splatter your brains across this deck." Varys stood tall, defiance blazing in his eyes. "Never. My people will not bow to human tyranny." An alarm blared, cutting through the tension. A technician's eyes widened. Sir, massive energy signatures in orbit. It's a Brunali fleet. The sky lit up as plasma bolts rained down on Zane's ground forces. Explosions rocked the earth, and panicked screams filled the air. In the village, young Varys huddled with his mother in a cramped shelter. The ground shook with each impact, dust falling from the ceiling. Varys whimpered, clinging tighter to his mother. "Shh, it's okay," she whispered, though her own voice trembled. The bombardment seemed to last forever. Then, suddenly silence fell. Varys's mother peered out, gasping as she saw Logan and Brunali soldiers moving through the ruins. "Father!" she cried, rushing out to embrace the battered but alive Elder Varys. Back on the ship, Zane snarled in defeat as his remaining forces surrendered, but his eyes gleamed with mad desperation. He lunged for a console, fingers dancing across the controls. "No!" Adam shouted, realizing too late what was happening. Alarms screamed as the warp core overloaded. Adam and his crew sprinted for the escape shuttles, the ship shuddering around them. They barely cleared the blast radius as the ship detonated in a blinding flash of antimatter annihilation. The shockwave rolled across the planet's surface, leveling everything in its path. When the dust settled, the devastation was total. Lush forests were reduced to ash, mountains crumbled, and once thriving settlements lay in smoldering ruins. Elder Varys' voice was hoarse as he contacted the Brunali fleet. "This is Elder Varys. We need immediate evacuation. Our world is dying." He turned to Adam, his expression a mix of anger and resignation. "You and your crew may shelter with us until transport can be arranged." Adam nodded grimly, then pulled Logan aside. "When we get back to Earth, we're facing court-martial. This mission was a disaster." Logan's shoulders slumped. "I know, sir, but at least we stopped it from being worse." In what remained of the village, young Varys trembled in his mother's arms. She held him close, tears streaking her dust-covered face as she surveyed the ruined world around them. The acrid stench of smoke and ash hung heavy in the air as young Varys trudged alongside his mother through the ruins of their once vibrant world. Debris crunched beneath their feet, and the eerie silence was broken only by distant shouts and the occasional rumble of rescue vehicles. "Keep moving, sweetheart," his mother urged, her voice hoarse from the dust. "We're almost there." As they crested a hill, Varys' eyes widened at the sight before him. A sprawling camp of hastily erected shelters stretched out near the skeletal remains of what was once their capital city. Brunali soldiers in scorched uniforms directed the flow of refugees, their faces etched with exhaustion. Varys and his mother joined the throng of displaced civilians. They shuffled forward in a line, passing by overwhelmed aid workers who handed out meager rations and blankets. The boy's stomach growled as he clutched a small packet of nutrient paste. "It's not much," his mother whispered, "but it will have to do for now." As night fell, tensions in the camp rose. Varys huddled in a corner of their cramped shelter, watching through a torn flap as an angry crowd gathered near the central command post. "Where's our protection?" a man shouted, his fist raised. "The humans nearly wiped us out and our leaders did nothing." The crowd's angry murmurs grew louder and Varys shrank back, fear gripping his heart. Days passed in a blur of hunger and uncertainty. Then one morning, Varys spotted a familiar face, his grandfather, Elder Varys, emerging from a meeting tent. The old man's shoulders sagged with the weight of recent events. Curious, Varys crept closer, staying hidden behind a stack of supply crates. He watched as two humans, Captain Adam Roberts and Sergeant Logan Hall, were brought before his grandfather. "The decision is final," Elder Varys said, his voice carrying a mix of sorrow and steel. "The High Council has spoken. All remaining humans are to be exiled from our world." Captain Adam stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "Elder Varys, please. You can't judge all of humanity by the actions of one madman. We came here in peace, remember?" Sergeant Logan nodded earnestly. "If we work together, we can rebuild our two species." "Enough," Elder Varys cut him off. Your people brought destruction to our home. We can never trust humans again. Varys watched as the two men were led away, their faces etched with defeat. Unable to contain his curiosity, the boy darted after them, following at a distance as they were taken to a holding area. He found a small gap in the force field, just big enough to see through. Sergeant Logan noticed him first, his eyes widening in recognition. "Hey there, little one," Logan said softly. "I remember you." Varys swallowed hard, finding his voice. "Why did you do this to us? Why did the humans hurt my people?" Logan's face crumpled with remorse. "Oh, kid, I wish I had a better answer for you. Sometimes fear and hatred make people do terrible things, even those who start out wanting peace." Before Varys could respond, a harsh voice called out, "Step away from the force field!" The boy scurried back, watching as Logan and the other humans were herded onto a waiting shuttle. The vessel's engines thrummed to life, and Varys felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked up to see his mother and grandfather standing beside him. As the shuttle lifted off, disappearing into the star-studded sky, Elder Varys addressed the gathered refugees. His voice carried across the hushed crowd. "Let this day serve as a warning to future generations," he intoned. "Humans have proven themselves too dangerous to be trusted. From this moment on, we must be ever vigilant. We will fortify our defenses and watch the stars for any sign of their return." Varys gazed up at the night sky, a mix of emotions swirling in his young heart. Somewhere out there, the humans drifted, exiled and alone. The dream of friendship between their peoples now seemed as distant and cold as the stars themselves. His mother squeezed his hand. "Come, Varys, it's time for bed." As they walked back to their shelter, Varys knew that this story, the tale of humanity's betrayal and the near destruction of his world, would be one he'd carry with him always. A stark reminder of the day everything changed.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.